What's up, guys? Justin here with TheSketchUpEssentials.com, back with another SketchUp free tutorial. So in this video, we're going to continue our series on using SketchUp's free online version to model things in 3D. So this is going to be a series. It's going to kind of walk you through how the tools work, some smart workflows, and some other things to get you started working with the free version. So let's go ahead and just jump into it. So what I like to do when I'm first teaching getting started with a program is the first video is always kind of a here's what the different tools are and where everything's located. And then I like to start off with just creating a simple model to give you an idea of kind of what your process is going to be when creating things inside of SketchUp. So I thought in this situation for the online version, it would be good to start off by modeling a simple house, just to give you an idea of how we're going to use the different tools in here. In general, I'm going to be trying to use keyboard shortcuts as I go rather than clicking on the tools over here, but I will try to talk about which tools they are as we go as well. So to start off, what we want to do is we want to draw a simple rectangle. And so you can either tap the R key to activate that tool, or you can click over here and click on rectangle in order to create a rectangle. So the first thing we're going to do is you can see how your mouse turns to this little blue, or it turns into this little pencil with a little blue box on there. We want that to be blue, meaning that we're drawing on the blue axis. So it should just kind of inference to that for you. If not, you can lock this to the blue axis by tapping the up arrow key once. But what we're going to do is we're just going to click in here one time, and then we're going to move our mouse in this direction. And what I want to do is I want to draw a square that's 20 feet by 20 feet. So in this situation, what I'm going to do is, since I already have this tool active and I've already clicked, you can see on the lower right hand corner now, my dimensions are still active and they change depending on where my mouse is. So like, for example, if I was to type in a value of 20 feet, comma 20 feet, what that's going to do, whoops, that did 20 feet 20 inches. So we're going to type in 20 feet, comma 20 feet, and hit the enter key. What that's going to do is that's going to draw a rectangle that's 20 foot by 20 foot. And note that this will draw this in whatever direction your mouse is going after you've set that first point. So if I move my mouse this way and do the same thing, 20 feet, comma 20 feet, you can see how this draws this in the other direction. And I'm just going to erase this out. You can just tap the E key to activate the eraser tool. But what we want to do now is we want to start and we want to model our house with a thickened wall. So this is usually how you're going to model exterior walls inside of SketchUp. Is what you're going to do is you're going to model the outside perimeter of your building, and then you're going to use a tool called the offset tool in order to offset this inward. So you can activate the offset tool either by tapping the F key or by coming over here and clicking right here and finding the button for offset. And what we want to do is you're going to notice when you mouse over this, it turns kind of a highlighted color in here. What that means is this is indicating that the offset tool will offset based on this square. And so we're just going to move our mouse inside of here, and we're going to single click, and remember not to hold your mouse button down, simply single click in here. And then we're going to type in a value of 6 and hit the enter key. And what that's going to do is that's going to offset this wall inward by 6 inches. So now you can see how the whole perimeter of this has been offset inward by 6 inches. And so now what we have is we have the profile of a wall. And now what we want to do is we want to extrude that into 3D using the push-pull tool. So if you remember, you can activate the push-pull tool either by clicking over here and clicking on this button for push-pull, or by tapping the P key on your keyboard. And so what we want to do is we want to single click on this wall. So single click in here and then move your mouse, and you can see how what this does is this extrudes your wall upward. So what we want to do in this situation is we want to type in a value of we'll go with 11 feet. So I'm just going to type in 11 feet and hit the enter key. And what that's going to do is that's going to extrude my wall up to a height of 11 feet. And you can measure that using the tape measure tool if you want to double check. So you can see how this shows a height of 11 feet in here. And so now what I want to do is I want to go ahead and I want to cut an opening for a door and an opening for a window in this building. And so what I want to do in this situation is I just want to find wherever this door is going to be. In this case, I'm just going to assume it's going to start off of this midpoint, and I'm going to activate the line tool by tapping the L key or by coming over here and clicking on this and selecting the line tool. And what we want to do is we want to move our mouse over this midpoint, and we want to single click. And when we single click, we can draw a line up on this face. And so you can see I can move my mouse up like this to make sure that we're drawing along the blue axis. And then I'm just going to type in a value of 7 feet and hit the enter key. And then now I want to draw another line that's 3 feet to give it to the width of my door. So, and then I can draw a third line all the way down. And basically what we've done is we've separated this face from this face. And so now what we can do is we can use the push-pull tool to push-pull this back to cut an opening in this wall. So in order to do that, just activate the push-pull tool by tapping the P key. Then you're going to move your mouse over this door, single click, and then move your mouse until you get this little indicator that says on face. And so when this says on face, what this means is this has push-pulled this through all the way to the back. So it's push-pulled it as far as it can go, and you've push-pulled it on this face. Well, since you're push-pulling through a wall, if you click when this says on face, SketchUp is going to automatically figure out that you want to cut a hole inside of this wall, and it's going to cut this opening. So now what I have is I have a door opening inside of my model. And so now what I want to do is I want to create a window. And one of the tricky things about creating a window is they need to be a certain height above the ground. And you also usually want them to line up with like the top of a door or something like that, so that everything's kind of uniform. Well, what we can do is we can use the tape measure tool to create what's called a guide. And what a guide is a dotted line that goes inside of SketchUp that doesn't really affect any of the geometry, so it doesn't split any edges or faces. It just visually indicates something and gives you something to inference to. So we can create a guide by clicking on the button for tape measure and clicking on tape measure. And then you can see how when I move my mouse over this, there's a little there's 2 dashes and a plus to the lower right hand side of my tape measure tool. And so what that indicates is that we're in create guide mode. So for right now, we do want to be in create guide mode. If you don't see that in here, you can just tap the control key in order to turn that on. And so once we've done that, what we can do is we can single click on this bottom line and then move our mouse up, and you can see how this will allow us to draw a guide to whatever height we want. So in this situation, I want to create a guide that's 3 feet off the ground, and then I want to click on this edge, move my mouse up, and I want to create a guide that's the same height as my door. And so you can see how this is allowing me to single click on this point right here, and this guide is still being drawn straight up and down. So this allows us to use our inferencing in order to do this. And so if we want to, we can also create a guide off of this door. So let's say we want our window to be 3 feet off of the door. We can drag a guide right here. So single click and then move your mouse and click again. And then let's say we want our window to be 5 feet wide. We could just type in a value of 5 feet. We can draw a guide right here. So now what that means is I can draw a rectangle based on the intersections of these guides right where I want my window to be. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to push-pull this back. So I'm just going to activate the push-pull tool by tapping the P key. I'm going to single click on this face, and I'm going to move my mouse until I get this on face again. So, and one trick about this is when you're using a wall like this one, the push-pull tool is only going to push-pull this forward or back, right? Like you can't move it up or down. So one trick for this is if you can't get that on face to show up, you can move your mouse up here to somewhere on the back side of the wall, and you can click anywhere on the back side of this wall, and SketchUp will know that you want to push-pull through to something level with this edge. So that's an easy way to push-pull this back through, so you know it's going to be level with that wall, and it's going to cut that opening. And so now I'm just going to tap the E key, which is going to activate the eraser, and I'm going to click and hold, and I'm just going to move my mouse over these dotted lines in order to erase these guides, because we don't really need them anymore. And so one other thing that we're going to do right now, and this is something that I'll cover a little bit more in the next video, is we want to go ahead and we want to group this wall. And the reason for that, and we'll talk more about this in another video, is right now geometry inside of SketchUp, when it's not grouped, is sticky. Meaning if I had two boxes like this, and I was to move this box against this one, and then try to move it away, and we'll go ahead and align these edges real quick. But you can see if I try to move this away, what happens is the faces of those boxes merge together. And then now, wherever I click, you can see how that's kind of deforming this box. Well, what this does is that makes all of the geometry of your door and your window merge together, which means if you ever decide to change anything, it can get really complicated. So what I like to do is I like to take all of this. So I'm going to triple click, which is going to allow me to select everything that's connected to the point that I clicked on. And I'm going to right click and I'm going to select the option for Make Group. And so basically what that means is now if I click on this, where before if I clicked on this it would select this face, now because all of that selected geometry has been put in a group, you can see how this only selects the group rather than the selected geometry. And you can still edit the individual parts and pieces, you just need to double click inside of this in order to get inside of the group. And you can see how when I double click on this I get this dotted line around here. That's just an indicator that you're inside of a group that you're editing. And I'm going to click back off of this in order to get back outside of this group. And so one thing I like to do when I'm modeling things like this is I like to draw a rectangle across this face. So I like to tap the R key and draw a rectangle across here, just because if you ever do anything inside of this building, I like for it to feel like there's a ceiling in there. A lot of that's going to depend on how you want to design your building. But we're going to go ahead and we're going to draw that rectangle right here. And then all I want to do is I just want to come in here and I just want to draw a roof. So to draw a roof, what we're going to do is we're going to activate the line tool by tapping the L key or by clicking on this tool. And then we want to find the midpoint and we want to single click and we want to move our mouse up and type in a value of something like 4 feet. So I'm just going to type in 4 feet and hit the enter key. And what I want to do is I want to draw a line from this point to this point, and a line from this point to this point. And then I want to activate the eraser tool by tapping the E key, and I want to click and drag across this face. So what that does is that erases out this edge and that merges these two faces together. And so then we can use the push-pull tool by tapping the P key, and we can push-pull this back to the back side of our building. So you can see how this is now push-pulled all the way back here, and it's level with the back side of this building. And one thing you can do, and I don't want to get too far into this right now, but you can come in here and you can either hide this edge, and then you can also double click in here and right click and hide this edge if you want this to look smooth. There's also another workaround with layers that we'll talk about in a less advanced or a more advanced video, but we're not going to worry about it too much for right now. Well, now what I want to do, but you can see how that kind of merges this so that these faces don't look, they don't look different. They look like they're kind of the same face. But what I want to do is I want to go ahead and I want to click on this face and I want to activate the offset tool, because right now this roof isn't very realistic, right? It's just kind of like this just kind of looks like a box with a point on it. Well, what we want to do is we want to model out our actual roof. So to do that, we're going to use the offset tool by tapping the F key, and we're just going to mouse over this triangle we've created and single click. And then we're going to move our mouse out something like, we'll call it 4 inches for right now. And so what that does is that basically offsets this whole face outward. Like this, it's basically drawn a triangle in here. So if I pull this out, you can see how it drew this triangle right here. Now that's not 100% what we want, because usually a roof doesn't have this piece all the way across. So all we're going to do is we're just going to come in here and we're just going to draw from here to here and here to here using the line tool. So just L and then single click, and then we can delete out this edge because we don't need it anymore. And basically what we've done is we've split this face out, so now we have this kind of roof profile right here. And then we're just going to use the push-pull tool, and I'm going to single click on this and I'm going to move my mouse forward, and I'm going to type in a value of 12 inches. And then I'm going to orbit around using my middle mouse button, and I'm going to push-pull this back until it's level with this back wall. So push-pull tool, tap the P key, single click, and move your mouse and click on this back wall somewhere. And then we just want to click again, and we just want to offset or push-pull this another 6 inches or so, or 12 inches. So now what that gives us is that gives us this nice house model in here. So we've got a nice looking roof, and we've got some openings for our door and our window. And so now what I want to do is I want to model out my window and I want to model out my door. And so by looking at our window and our door and just the way that windows and doors work in general, we know that basically what a window is it's a frame with glass in it. So what I want to do for this is I want to draw a rectangle on this face. So just activate the rectangle tool by tapping the R key or by clicking over here, and then single click on this corner, and then single click on this other corner. So basically what we've done is we've filled this in with a face. Well, now I want to activate the offset tool by tapping the F key, and we're just going to single click in here, and we're going to offset this in by about 2 inches. And we could make this more complex with like additional mullions and stuff. I'm going to leave this as a fairly simple window for this tutorial. But what we're going to do is we're just going to single click on this face and we're going to delete it out for right now. Because what we want to do is we want to push pull this frame that we've just created back until it's level with that back wall. And remember that an easy way to do this is just moving your mouse over this corner point right here. So remember that since this only push pulls this way or this way, clicking anywhere that's on that back plane is going to work just fine. And so what we've done is we've created a window frame in here. Well, now we can activate the rectangle tool again by tapping the R key, single click here, orbit around, and then single click on the midpoint right here, and you can see how that's going to draw a rectangle across this face. So now we can go over here and we can start adding materials to our model. So to add materials, we're going to go over here and we're going to find this button for materials. And the materials section contains a ton of different materials that you can apply inside of your models. And for this case, what we want to do is we want to make sure that we've clicked on this button for browse. And then we're just going to scroll down to the one that says glass and mirrors. And for glass and mirrors, all we need to do is we need to select one of these glass materials. So in this case, I'm going to select this blue material. And I'm just going to click on this window, and that's going to apply the material to this window. And if we wanted to, we could also go through and select all of this by dragging a box across here and making it a group. So that way now our window is in a group and our wall is in a group. That makes things easy to move and edit if you decide that you want to do that. But now let's do the same thing with our door. And in this case, what we can do is we can go through and we can draw this either on the front side or the back side. So in this case, I'm going to draw this across the back side. I'm just going to draw a rectangle by tapping the R key, single click on the back corner, and then single click on this corner right here. And so then I'm going to do the same thing I did before where I'm going to offset this in by 2 inches. So I'm going to tap the F key, single click on this face, and then type in a value of 2 inches. And so one thing about doors that's a little different than windows is you don't want this to be offset all the way around. So you can see how this offsets this all the way in, which isn't necessarily what you want. So what we can do is we can come in here, once we've offset this in, we can just select this line, activate the move tool by tapping the M key, and then single click and move our mouse down, and make sure you're on the blue axis when you do this, and click on this bottom point. And what that'll do is that'll merge this edge with this edge, and then now our frame is an uninterrupted face inside of our model. So now we can just push pull this frame using the push pull tool by tapping the P key. So you can push pull this frame right here. So now what you have is you have a door, you have a frame, and then you also have a window with a frame. And we could come in here if we wanted to and start applying materials. So like for example, if I wanted these to be maybe an aluminum material, which I know is more of a commercial type look, but we could come in here and we could apply this gray material to the edge to make our door frame. We could do the same thing in our window group just by clicking in here and then selecting that gray material and starting to apply that to faces. And so we'll go ahead and we'll call this good for right now. You could come in here and maybe like hide this glass material by right clicking and then apply a gray material to the back side of this frame as well, if you didn't like the gray showing through. And so because we hid this piece of glass, we need to go in and we need to unhide it, which in the free version of SketchUp can be found inside of this display setting. And you can just come in here and you see where it says unhide. We can go in and we can click last, so we can unhide the last thing that we hid. So now the only thing we need to do is just apply materials to the rest of this model. So you can come in here and you can kind of do this however you want. You could apply brick. So in this case, because we have this broken up a certain way, you're going to have to click twice in order to do that. You can also come in here and apply like a roofing material. So we can add like shingles or something like that to our house. And so one thing we need to go through and fix is we need to go through and fix the fact that we've applied this material to the outside of this group. And that's one thing to be aware of, by the way, is you can see how we applied this material to the outside of this group. That means that it got applied to the floor and everything else as well. Probably a better way to do that would be, instead of applying this to this group, you would probably want to apply it to the individual faces by double clicking inside of that group. And so probably what I would want to do is I would want to go through in this group and I would actually want to put this back. So one way to do this is if you click on the paint bucket over here, there's a tool in here for sample material. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on sample material and I'm going to sample the default material. And what that does is that makes your default material your active material that you're applying, and I'm going to apply that default material to my model. And what I want to do is I want to go in here and I want to apply this material to these individual faces instead of to the outside of the group. And so what we want to do is we want to come through here and we want to split these faces so that we can have a brick material on the bottom and a siding on the top. And so the easiest way to do this is just going to be to double click inside of this group, then activate the line tool, and we're just going to draw lines. And make sure you're drawing along the axes. So make sure, like for example, if I draw a line here, it's along the red axis. Here would be the green axis. But you can go through here and you can split this whole thing so that these faces are different. And then you could apply a brick material to the lower faces using the paint bucket tool. And you could apply like a siding material to the upper faces. So you can see how I can just fly around and just click on those. And then you can go ahead and hit escape to get out of that group, and you can go ahead and you can apply that siding material to this face up here as well. So that's kind of an overview of a smart way to create a house inside of the free version of SketchUp. As we continue, we'll start talking about more complex things like components and other things like that, but this should give you a good idea of what a getting started workflow should look like, so that you're modeling your models in a way that are easy to change and adjust in the future. Leave a comment below, let me know what you thought. Was this helpful to you? What are you struggling with the free version? I just love having that conversation with you guys. If you like this video, please remember to click that like button down below. If you're new around here, remember to click that subscribe button for new SketchUp content every week. If you like what I'm doing on this channel, please consider supporting me on Patreon. Every little bit helps, even if it's only $1 a month. So make sure you check out that link in the notes down below. But in any case, thank you so much for taking the time to watch this. I really appreciate it, and I will catch you in the next video. Thanks, guys.